This is Examined Leadership Podcast.
Look closer. Be better.
I'm Kurt Lichty.
And I am Andrew Eide.
We are continuing the principles of war. We're discussing them in your improvement as a person, as a professional, and in life. So today's principle of war is unity of command. To me, this is the easiest, most simple principle to understand. Coming from the military, maybe that's my default. There's a chain of command. And so this one's, to me, very simple to understand. Unity of command means that all your forces or employees are responsible to a single commander. In the military, this gets especially important when working in joint operations. You got to have a chain of command. Now, if you're with joint operations, that is Air Force, Army, Navy, Marines, different services working together, there's different commanders, the different people in charge. You still need to have one commander over the entire operation or over the entire base. My entire time in the Air Force as an active duty officer, I was never stationed at a blue base, an Air Force base. All my assignments were purple. That is joint with other services. I was first stationed at the Defense Language Institute, which is an Army base. So I had an 06, Colonel Baer I reported directly to him. I was his executive officer. He was a great boss. Colonel Baer, thanks for the development, the mentorship, good boss. But he was under an 06 Army commander. So the Army commander was in charge of the entire base, in charge of the institute as a whole. My 06 colonel had to respond to him, and we looked to the commander to make decisions on base and with the school, with the institute, who to hire, how to train. He was ultimately responsible. Next, I was stationed at the Air Station Borinquen in Puerto Rico. This was a Coast Guard base. And so again, joint operations, purple operations, Coast Guard. It's interesting because my rank as an 03, I was a captain when I went there. Captain in the Navy is an 06. And so I'd walk around as an 03 and people be saluting me, "Sir." They gave me a room with 5 bedrooms, 6. I was huge, a big house at first. And I said, "No, I'm not that kind of a captain. I'm not a Navy captain. I'm an Air Force captain a few steps down." So again, a joint assignment. When I deployed to Afghanistan, I was just a first lieutenant. I deployed in a major's billet and I was assigned to a Navy admiral. I reported directly to Admiral Herb. She was my boss. And she was under the command of General Petraeus, a 4-star Army officer. It was very clear the military does a good job of making sure you know who's ultimately in charge, who you have to respond to, who you obey. There's a commander's intent, commander's letters. You see whose signature's at the bottom. The picture is up around the hallway. You know who's in charge. There's a commander of the base, even though you may have a boss, even though you may have someone in your chain of command, in your service, you still are ultimately responsible to the base commander, to the operation commander, whoever it may be. In the case in Afghanistan, it wasn't just the U.S. General Petraeus was in charge of all of ISAF, the International Security Assistance Force. I believe there were 38 nations involved at the time, so not just Air Force, Army, Marines, Coast Guard. It was everybody. It was the Macedonians. It was the Georgians. It was the Australians, the Brits, the French. I roomed with a French officer while we were over there. Everyone. All reported, different countries. NATO, though, it's a NATO-run mission. Everyone's reporting to one officer. General Petraeus is making the decisions. We obey the rules of the base or the commander over our operations. So, Andrew, any introductory thoughts?
Yeah, so as we're going along this subject of unity of command, it makes me think of our first podcast. It all revolves around objective. We have unity of command because we have unity of objective. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think so. They're definitely related. I think we'll get into that.
Definitely. So there's for every single objective, there's always someone in charge of that objective. And for unity of command, the primary principle is to remove any doubt of who's in charge, right? Because leadership often is never declared in some situations, and so it's the captain, whoever. If it's a business, it's a manager. If it's in the military, it's a captain. If it's in football, it's a coach. It's their responsibility to make clear assignments and to remove any doubt of who is in charge of what assignments, so collectively it can go to achieving the objective. However, I did find an interesting perspective on unity of command, and it says here, for every objective, you must seek unity of command and unity of effort. Unity of command means that all forces are under one responsible commander. But during multinational operations and interagency coordination, which is like NATO, for example,
sure,
or like here at doTERRA, there's so many different departments. There's placements, there's commissions, there's compliance, there's the call center. We all have the same objective, but it's not like all of us report to the same exact person. I mean, everyone eventually is underneath David Sterling, but for practical purposes for our Brazilian market, we all report to different people. So during interagency coordination, unity of command may not be possible, but the requirement for unity of effort becomes paramount. Unity of effort, the coordination and cooperation toward common objectives, even if the participants are not necessarily part of the same command or organization, is the product of successful unified action.
That's interesting. So going back to the first principle of war, it's great to see how they all intermingle. You can't just have one principle of war govern your actions. They really are intertwined. If your objective as a boss, as a business owner, as a commander, if your objective is clear, if you have a clear mission statement, even if you have your operations split into different commands, different bosses, different departments, different buildings even, we've got buildings here and on the other side of the freeway, no matter if you're split up, if your objective is clear, if everyone's on the same page of exactly what we're trying to accomplish, you can split up objectives or split up bosses and still maintain unity of effort, unity of command.
Exactly. That's why I thought unity of effort is paramount, because how many times have we been held up waiting for someone else to do their job, and we cannot move forward because it's pending on someone else to do their job, but there's no unity of effort going on.
Exactly. There's confusion. Or sometimes when you have two bosses responsible for the same assignments, when you're not sure, my favorite is you have got a dotted line to this person or a dotted line to that. How many dotted lines do I have? Who's making the decision here? The master of the universe said, no man can serve two masters. For either he will hate the one and love the other, or else he will hold to the one and despise the other. No man can serve two masters. It's got to be clear who's in charge, who's calling the shots, and, like you said, objective, what's our purpose?
Exactly.
So I'm not going to go to the Civil War this time. I was pretty heavy on Civil War last time. I do have a Revolutionary War example this time. The Battle of Monmouth. Big one. Battle of Monmouth. So Washington, in this case, it's June of 1778. Washington is going up against British General Henry Clinton. Thanks to the help of the French at this point, the Americans are winning back Philadelphia. Britain came in, they took over our nation's capital, they kicked butt, they made a disaster of our capital. It's embarrassing. But we're taking it back. Thanks, like I said, thanks to the help of the French, we took over Philadelphia. Clinton was ordered to evacuate the city. Now, Washington can't just let them walk out unmolested after they had ransacked our city. So he drew up a battle plan. Washington cut his troops into thirds, giving control of 1/3 to different commanders. So he puts a commander under, he's over 1/3. He's got a general over the other 2/3. General Charles Lee is the pivotal character here. He puts Charles Lee in charge of 1/3 of the troops. He planned to attack the British as they were evacuating from 3 sides. Lee was supposed to attack the rear guard of the British during their retreat. Lee knew the plan. He knew what he was supposed to do. There was unity of command, but Lee had some beef with Washington earlier. He wasn't sure that he was the right guy to lead. In fact, he was leading almost a rebellion against Washington. They were trying to overthrow him, replace him. Washington was clearly the man for the job, but there was some dispute about it. And so Lee's got a bone to pick with Washington and didn't go in with his heart dedicated to the mission. He didn't have unity of effort, like you said. So he goes in half-heartedly, attacks the rear guard of the British. We can't let them escape. We can't add embarrassment to injury. So he goes in there and only does a half job. The Brits turn, they start firing back, they start winning, they push Lee and his troops back. The whole plan is going to hell, and Washington, in a rare moment of passion, he loses his cool. He just goes off on Lee and says, this is not what's happening. I gave you orders. He jumps on his horse. He rushes to the front of the battle. He re-gives his orders. He regains control. More importantly, he regains belief in his men. They start attacking again. They win the day. They take the battle. We took casualties, but the casualties were heavier on the British side. Some people call the Battle of Monmouth a stalemate, but it actually was a very good thing. Psychologically especially, it's one of the rare occasions in which we actually retained possession of the battlefield. We won the battlefield. We've got the ground. The Brits had to fully evacuate, and they realized the American army were nothing to play with. And it solidified. This was a moment that was solidified that Washington is the commander-in-chief. He got a commendation from Washington, D.C., or Philadelphia. Philadelphia was the capital. Yeah. He got commendations from up top, from the capital. Now, as far as Lee goes, he was court-martialed for conducting, quote, an unnecessary, disorderly, and shameful retreat. You can't break unity of command. If you've got another idea, if you have a different plan, it needs to be communicated clearly, effectively to the right people. It could be disastrous if you are trying to give other commands that your boss or that your superior, your inferiors, if you're giving commands and your lower level managers are giving different commands, it could cause disaster. As you say in the military, when you mess up, people die. You got to have unity of command.
Exactly. And there's a time and a place to voice your concerns. I think that all leadership always needs some type of feedback. But on the battlefield is not the time to do it or act it out without disclosing your concerns.
I agree.
And it brings me back to the Leadership 101 book by John Maxwell. That it's amazing. If you haven't read Leadership 101, I suggest you do it.
Easy read too. Sure, every leader should have that one.
Exactly. And they talk about the credibility of a leader in this book, and they gave 3 C's: competence, connection, and character. And you take this example of Lee in Washington, and you can see it's obvious who has those 3 characteristics and who doesn't. The main one is character. If a leader, if their ego is so big that they are willing to put people's lives at stake, what does that say about their character?
Yeah, they've lost focus. People are obvious, troops are obviously most important. If you're worrying about your pride or how you look over people, something's wrong. Yeah, you got no character.
Exactly. And I think you mentioned something along the lines of this was one of the moments that kind of set George Washington apart,
yes,
right?
Yes.
And what was George Washington known for? He was known for his character, that he never told a lie.
Character so much. He set the example. Trump is following this example right now. Whether you're for or against Trump, it's cool that George Washington didn't want to get paid for his job. He thought he had a duty, he had an obligation. I'm doing this because I love my country. He said, I will not get paid to be in this position. He did have his expenses. He had an expense account and he wanted to be reimbursed for his expenses, but he chose not to take a salary. Trump's doing the same thing. He's got a lot of money, so some people don't see it as a very big deal. I think it's cool, though, that the $400,000 that he's getting paid as president, he donates that. He won't take it. He donates that to different charities, including veteran groups. So one thing, I don't know if Trump is the pinnacle of character.
Well, he is one.
Yeah, but yes, Washington definitely showed much more character than Lee. Lee was in it for himself.
Exactly. This also shows competence. He knows that leaders eat last. And he knows that leaders will do anything they can to make sure that their people are taken care of and that the objective will be completed.
Another great book, Simon Sinek, Leaders Eat Last. Got to read that one.
Yes. And lastly, connection. He had a connection with his troops. He had a connection with the purpose. And connection also goes with unity of command. When you think of the 3 leaders, let's use our example here at work. We have a market director, we have a GM, and we have a VP. When they aren't on the same page, there's a lack of connection, and that hurts the trust of the market in general or the trust of the employees. If you have a general and you have 2 other commanders underneath him and they're always on a different page, you can tell that there isn't connection between the leaders, and that hurts their credibility. It's hard to have credibility as a leader if you're not on the same page as the people that take orders from you.
Not only credibility with your troops, but credibility with your market. In this example, and I'm not pulling a Lee here, I'm not doing anything that I haven't talked to my bosses already about, but they make decisions sometimes and they're not on the same page. There isn't any unity of command. Someone will say, I want to hold an event in this city on this date, and we'll post it on the website. And then 2 weeks later, one of our other bosses, unity of command, where it's at, will say, nope, not where I want it to be. Some of our people have already bought plane tickets. Some of our people have already announced it to their field. And so we lose credibility. Or we'll say, hey, we're launching a new kind of customer. You can have a new kind of discount or a new type of product account with our company, and we'll go ahead and launch it. Another boss wanted to wait, 60 days or 30 days. You've got to be aligned, because then you have to send out a message to your customers, to your faithful customers, who will no longer be faithful when you say, never mind, we're not doing it that way. And what's going on here? Can I trust this company? Why do they keep pulling my chain?
Exactly. And unfortunately, how you recover, errors happen. People make mistakes all the time in business and in life in general. And the character part of this is everything. I am much more likely to forgive and restore confidence in someone that owns up to their mistake.
Yes.
Yes, that was an error on our end. We shouldn't have released that information, or we shouldn't have made this decision. Thank you for the feedback. It won't happen again. And you move forward like, oh, okay, no, I can trust this company. But if you just sweep it under the rug and you act like, okay, deal with it, and you don't assume any of the blame, you don't have character. And when you make a sin of character, without repenting for it, even after repenting, if your character is at stake rather than your lack of communication and your lack of competence, you can't fool people anymore.
Yeah, you gain credibility. You're going to keep your credibility as a boss. Some leaders think that by being demanding, by being in charge, by barking orders, you gain your credibility. A lot of times you gain credibility just by making sure you have unity of command. Jordan B. Peterson talks about if you're a good manager, you make yourself superfluous by extending autonomy and independence to the people that you manage so that they can take over the whole job. You don't do that by doing everything for people. So this is a segue into our next point. Speaking of work examples, it's important to point out that unity of command doesn't just mean the commander, vice president, team lead, manager, whoever makes all the decisions. You can break this down to objectives or teams. So as a good leader, you're going to designate people to make decisions for you over certain tasks or responsibilities. We've got this objective, we've got this team, we've got this function. You are in charge. This now falls under your purview. I'm in the chain of command. I'm still the president. I'm still the owner, whatever. I'm the CEO. But you have responsibility over this area. So it's not just about lower level bosses or commanders always yielding to the higher authority. It's about the higher authority allowing the lower level managers autonomy and trust to make decisions, to take the command, to be bold, to make actions. You can tell the principle of unity of command has been violated. It's not working when managers, team leaders are scared to make a decision. That's a bad boss. I'm going to put you in charge of a certain area. You have responsibility to run this team of 5, 6, 7, 12 people. You get to make decisions. Now, if you make decisions and I'm constantly overruling you, I'm a horrible boss. If I make it look, nope, there needs to be unity of command, I'm in charge, Andrew, you're not taking my directives, or whoever, that's horrible. So each team can have a leader. Each task can be given to a person on the team. Me as a team leader, as a manager, I want to make sure that each of my people feels responsibility over at least one important task. Real ownership. Jocko Willing talks about extreme ownership. They've got to be bought in, and in order to be bought in, they need to feel like they're owning their task. I can't run it for them. I do my best to trust my people here and respect their decisions and try not to overrule them. That's hard for a lot of leaders. But every time I want to overrule some of the people that work for me, I ask myself all the time, will this decision that my lower level manager is making bring mission failure? Is this going to negatively impact us? If it does the negative impact I will make by overruling her decision be larger than the impact of going forward with her maybe inferior plan? If it is a directive or a plan or something I definitely can't live with, I let her change it. I counsel her. I go to her or him. We talk about why I think my decision is better, why my directive is better, why my plan is better, and then I let her announce the change to the team. I might say, hey, let's change this up. Let's go another direction. Please send a team-wide email. CC me. Once I see it, I'll jump in and say, bravo, totally agree. Great leadership, great thinking, smart change. That way we emphasize unity of command. She's in charge. This is her stewardship. This is her area of responsibility. It keeps the unity of command intact. It saves face. But never, and I mean never, do that in front of your troops. Unless someone's about to get shot, you don't overrule your managers in front of anybody else.
Exactly. It sounds like you're talking about two different but separate concepts that are essential in leadership. It sounds a lot like you're explaining the first concept, which is decentralized command, which is basically the top person, or the top commander, the top leader in whatever you're doing, they delegate certain objectives and tasks to smaller managers.
Exactly.
Correct? Because they do this because who knows better to make a decision? Someone that's on the field, on the ground, working amongst the people, on the front lines, or the general that's back at headquarters that doesn't really know what's going on. They just have their knowledge.
Precisely.
And you also sound as you're talking about empowering others to make decisions. You're not teaching them to make decisions or telling them to make decisions. You are empowering them.
It's kind of a buzzword right now. It's a little bit overused, but I do love the word. I always say good leaders can do the work of 10 men. Great leaders empower 10 others to get the work done. Like JBP said, if you're a good manager, you make yourself superfluous. You extend your autonomy to your managers.
Exactly. So I'm not going to lie to you. At the beginning of preparing for this podcast, when I was thinking of unity of command, which I know is essential, and I also was thinking about decentralized command, which we know is a concept of war that has turned tides of entire wars. It changed the tide of World War I or World War II. I don't want to talk about the Nazi Germany too much, but they decided to do decentralized command in their blitzkrieg. It wasn't Hitler telling them what to do. He just said, here's our task, you do it. You do it here. You know, the Air Force, the ground troops, the artillery, here's the task, you go figure out the best way to get it done. And that's because they didn't want to repeat World War I. World War I was centralized command, where they sit in trenches and they shot at each other, they charged at each other. They had to shake things up. So decentralized command, we know, is empowering others on the ground that know the better decisions because they are live actions trying to solve problems, empowering them to make the decisions. So when I viewed unity of command and decentralized command, I felt like it was kind of a dichotomy.
Okay.
Can you see where I'm coming from?
Yeah, they do kind of sound like competing principles. Lots of commanders or one commander? Which one is it? Is it one commander unity? Or can I have 10, 11, 12, 13 commanders?
Exactly. So how can a leader or a CEO of a business that understands the unity of command, how can they also implement decentralized command without feeling overwhelmed?
Great question. Because you got to maintain unity of command. But as I said before, you need to empower your lower level troops. Good leaders lead. Great leaders develop other leaders. So making sure you delegate these responsibilities and really give them ownership. You got to let go of it. Once you give it to someone, like you said, it could be overwhelming for the leader to do everything. You don't have to. And in fact, by decentralizing command and decentralizing decision making to these lower level managers and troops that know what they're doing on the ground, you actually spur creativity. You get better ideas. I can't think of everything. And I'm not exposed to all the frontline work that you're exposed to. If I give you true ownership over this task, you're going to think of things I haven't thought of. If I'm constantly overruling you or constantly trying to do it all, I'm going to create robots. I'm going to create people that don't think, that don't come up with plans. They know I'm going to shoot it down every single time. And so by really giving them ownership of the tasks, decentralizing the decision making to the lower level leaders, you win. You get better decisions. You get better productivity this way.
Exactly. Going back to objective, every team, every business needs to have a set culture of values. This is the way we do business. Here are the core principles of our work ethic. You can only do so much. You can't make every single decision in the business.
Yeah.
You do your best to teach the core principles, to teach the mission, to teach the values that your company wants to uphold. And you empower them, you empower your leaders, and you let them go forward. Because eventually, subordinates need to have plans on their own. Going back to Leif Babin, who is Jocko Willink's co-worker, and they served together in the military, he said this: you set up a culture where even the new guy, his opinion matters.
Yes.
Then you set up a culture for success. Because of that, if his opinion matters, you're setting up a culture for success. Why? Because even if you're a new guy, you're leading. And if everyone is leading, we win. So it's like, speak up and lead. We are listening.
Yeah, we just hired a brand new account manager for our team. She's sharp, really sharp. And I told her, your perspective, you have a new, fresh perspective. You have a new set of eyes on things. We've been doing this job for a few years now. We're kind of set in the way we're doing it. We have our processes. We try to innovate and create and change things up. But she's got a new look on things. And so I said, please feel free to suggest as many crazy things as you want. If we're doing something wrong, if you want to suggest something different, I want to hear all your ideas. There's probably a way we can improve. You got to give her that. Elon Musk, he's got some rules for productivity. He sent an email that turned famous with 6 rules. I think there were 6 rules of productivity, and some of them apply directly to unity of command. Rule number 5 was communicate directly. irrespective of hierarchy. I'll read straight from his email. These are some quotes from this company-wide email he sent. Communication should travel via the shortest path necessary to get the job done, not through the chain of command, decentralized command, like you said. Any manager who attempts to enforce chain of command communication will soon find themselves working elsewhere. A major source of issues is poor communication between departments. The way to solve this is allow free flow of information between all levels. If in order to get something done between departments, an individual contributor has to talk to their manager, who talks to a director, who talks to a VP, who talks to the other VP, who talks to a director, who talks to a manager, who talks to someone doing the actual work, then super dumb things happen. It must be okay for people to talk directly and just make the right thing happen.
I love how blunt he is, and stupid things happen. And communication is absolutely paramount to this. Speaking of stupid things that happen and tragic things that happen when people just assume that things are going on, because there's not unity of command, because there's not clarity of role. I'm going to go back to read this story that in 1968, researchers John Darley and Babe Latané published a study based on emergency situations that has something to do with diffusion of responsibility, or the bystander effect. Have you heard of the bystander effect?
Yeah, my undergraduate, I've got a master's in business, but yeah, my undergraduate was behavioral science, psychology. So yeah, I study this. I hope you're going to read what I think you are.
Awesome. So they were studying a case in 1964 about a murder of someone named Katie Genovese that was, I believe, in New York. She was attacked while walking home from work on the street. Dozens of people witnessed that attack, but they didn't help. They didn't take any action. They witnessed this lady named Katie Genovese get attacked and murdered on the street. There was cars, there was people all around. And so the phenomenon is that people are less likely to take action when others are present because they feel less responsibility. Mm-hmm. And how often does this happen on a sports team or in a business or any kind of organization? When people feel that, there is a task that needs to be done, but I've got 5 or 6 other people in this room. We don't really know who's in charge. There's not unity of command. I'm just going to assume that someone else does it.
Yeah, bystander effect. Of the 5 of us sitting here, someone's going to do it. Percentage-wise, it's going to be likely that it's not me to take action. But if everyone thinks that, no one takes action.
Exactly. And I think every single day, I call them manifestations to the universe. Someone sends out an email that says, let's contact these people and tell them about these changes or this result.
And you got 18 people on the 2 line.
Yeah. And that makes it worse. You think that logically, if I add more people, if more people receive this email, then I increase the chances of this objective being achieved.
So I'm going to CC another 15. Now I got 33. It's more likely to get done now. I got 33 people on this email.
Exactly. But in this study by John Darley and Babe Latané that happened 4 years after, I forgot to read some points here. So the people that witnessed this murder happening, they said here, they assumed others had taken action already because no one had been assigned and they couldn't see how other people had responded. One of the witnesses said that they assumed others had already called and reported what was happening, so they didn't do anything.
See, going back to business application, if your people just assume that other people are taking action, if they don't step up, you're a bad boss. You've got this unity of command principle wrong. They need to be stepping up.
Exactly. So in this study, they had a couple different participants. They engaged in a group discussion over an intercom. So they had one person in their own room with an intercom, and then they had another person in another room with an intercom. So they knew that they were in a group discussion, but they couldn't see each other. They were in separate rooms.
Okay.
Right? And so in one study, they had 6 people in the group intercom.
Yeah.
Or it was one person, but he was told that there were 6 other people. Right?
Ah, okay.
And the other person that was the mediator, that was like the researcher, they were pretending to be someone participating in the discussion. And before the discussion about the topic, I don't even remember what the topic was, he had been confiding in the participant that was being studied that, hey, I have epilepsy, I have a history of seizures, I'm getting kind of nervous right now. And so he let the person know that he had a history with seizures, okay? So 2 people are being studied, 1 person in a group of 6, 1 person by themselves. So they knew that they were by themselves and that they were talking to someone else. Okay? So they had the group of one person where they knew it was just him and another person being tested. And then they had another group of 6 people, right? And so both groups knew that there was a person with a history of seizures in it. During the study, the person with the history of seizures started to have a seizure during the study.
Legit? Was this fake?
It was an act to see if people would report it or not.
Okay, I got you.
And in the group where there was only 2 people, so for example, me and you, right? If you start to have a seizure and I'm by myself and I'm the one being tested, there was an 85% chance I would get up, get out of the room and do something about it because I knew that I was the only one. I was like, oh crap, we're in a group to study. It's just me and Kurt, and he was just telling me that he has a history of seizures. So I'm the only one here. I need to go help this guy. 85% chance that this person would go up and get help.
Before you keep going, I'm laughing at the 15%. What are these people doing? This guy's dying.
Fight or flight or freeze. There's 3 responses. I think some people just panic.
Maybe you would hope 100% of people would do something about someone dying in front of them.
The 85% chance. I mean, that's 50% chance away, and human beings aren't perfect. So yeah, okay, I get what you're saying.
I want to see the other statistics.
So in the group of 6 people, where it's me and you, and then I'm told that there's another 4 people, right? You start having a seizure. I'm going to assume that the other 4 people are going to get up and do something about it. So in that group of 6 people, there was only a 31% chance that the person being studied was going to get up and go tell someone about the person having a seizure, or to go get help, or to report on the intercom, hey, are you okay? Hey, I think this other person's having a seizure. Only a 31% chance.
Of 10 people, only 3 of them actually take action.
Exactly. It's diffusion of responsibility. He felt that there was other people participating in the intercom discussion because he was told that there was 4 other participants.
Man, yeah. In my police training, I was a police officer for a short time after I got out of the military. And at the police academy, we were trained when something's going down and you need help, you're the only officer on the scene. If there's a medical emergency, if you need help, you point to somebody. You call 911. You get over here and start performing CPR. You point to someone. You can't say, someone call 911. You yell out, someone call 911. Nobody's calling 911.
Exactly.
Because everyone else thinks, oh, that guy will. He will. Everyone's got a cell phone. No, hey, you, buddy. You are calling 911.
Exactly. And the numbers don't lie. They're here. If you direct someone to be in charge of something, 85% chance they'll do it. Normally. And if you're in a group of other people where no one's been directed to take responsibility of something, only about 31% chance that someone will get up and do something about it.
Interesting. That leads me to talk about team sizes. As you're developing a business or as you're organizing your structure, if you have a large team, if you have several people under your responsibility, team size is critical. Like you talked about, just throwing 20, 30 people on an email chain saying, hey, let's manifest this, let's get this done, someone do this. That doesn't increase the likelihood that it's going to get done. Your team sizes need to be structured to produce the ideal level of productivity. There was a psychologist from Oxford University, Robin Dunbar. He theorized, and then it was proved throughout the business world everywhere, that the ideal company size is 150. Our minds can only handle human associations up to 150 people before our relationships become a little less meaningful, less effective. We can't remember that many people, that many names. What does that guy do in the company? Darn it, which department is she with? 150 is the max. So some companies open a new factory, or they'll open a new location, or they'll split and put a new vice president over a new group every time the company gets to 150. 75 each until the teams grow again up to 150. Smart. It's good business. And within the teams within a team, according to Jeff Bezos, that dude knows what's up. Those teams should be small. To enhance productivity, cohesion, unity, we're talking unity of command. This is most easily achieved when your teams within the team are no bigger than 8. 5 to 8, Jeff says, is ideal. He says if you can order 2 pizzas and have your team feeling satisfied with just those 2, you've got the right team size.
You with the military background, I notice from the movies or from hearing like people like Jocko Willink that were in the SEAL teams, I noticed that a lot of task units are small in numbers. It's like they're outnumbered. Is this kind of the reason why? Is it just because they will act more efficiently with less people because there's less chance for error because the communication doesn't have to travel through so many channels. Is there something to it?
You're absolutely right. We took Robin Dunbar's studies. The military have looked at this, and they try to split, at least in the Air Force, my experience, your squadron. We would try to split to make sure the squadron didn't exceed 150. I remember when I was in the language in an intelligence squadron, we were training spies, and every time we got to about that number, we split. We wanted to make a new squadron. You can't remember that many people. You can't train with that many people. Bystander effect increases. It's more likely that that diffusion of responsibility goes extreme. Like you said, it is a dichotomy. Someone else is going to do it. 150 for a large group is the max. Team within a team, your group should be 5 to 8. That's the ideal structure to produce the greatest level of productivity. And then make sure, going back to other principle, you designate certain responsibilities to those people. Give them ownership. Make sure they know the commander's intent. Make sure they know our overall objective, but you give those people ownership. I only have one or two more examples to give, particularly within families. Did you have anything else to add business-wise or military-wise?
Yeah, so I wanted to close out my thoughts before you go on to your last two here. Going back to the Leadership 101 with John Maxwell, I think that unity of command is essential in business and in military, in sports, in family, because of influence, the influence it has on your team. If you have good unity of command and unity of effort, you're more able to influence people. And he said, out of this book, Leadership 101, one of the most powerful quotes I've read on leadership, it says, "The true measure of leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. For your leadership to remain effective, it is essential that you take the other influencers within the group with you to the higher levels," which means role clarity. You decide through unity of command, I'm delegating you, you, and you. You're the most competent. You have the best connection. You have the highest character. I'm going to empower you to make these decisions because I can't make all these decisions for the team and I trust you. And then that way you bring them up with you. And it closes off by saying the collective influence of you and the other leaders will bring the rest along. If this does not happen, divided interest and loyalty will occur within the group. So if you think unity, you think collective. So the collective influence of you and the other leaders will bring the rest along. So if you can instill a good practice of unity of command and properly delegating and making sure to remove any doubt of who's in charge and practice unity of effort, you empower your whole team, and then even the people that aren't in positions of leadership will become leaders.
Love it. You talked about before, even the low-level people that aren't in charge of anyone, they're leaders. Good leaders lead. Great leaders develop other leaders. I always like to give some life examples, family examples. Unity of command even works in the family. Parents. Now, I don't like the idea of there being a chain of command, having the father be the head of the household. I don't like that phrase. I'm not the head of the household. Me and my wife parent together. We raise children together. Our objective is together. I'm not the president and she the vice president or vice versa. We raise our children together. Some people think that you can't have it that way. There needs to be a chain of command. It's okay to have both people leading, the mother and the father. In fact, it's healthy. What you need to do, though, is make sure you're on the same page. Like you said, unity of effort. Are we fighting the same battle? Do we have the same training techniques? Do we have the same parenting, the same discipline? This is especially important if you're divorced. People think, well, we're divorced, I can do my own thing. It's still important to maintain that unity of effort, to train the children the same way. You can't go to dad's house and do whatever you want. Don't be the Disneyland father where your kid comes to your house and he just gets to play and you give him the world because you want to be liked. Then that puts the mom in a bad position. And don't pit yourself against each other because then you're ruining your child. You're messing up your kid. You communicate with your partner as much as possible about how are we going to discipline our child, whether you're married or not. How are we going to do this? Let's talk about homework. Let's talk about TV time. Let's talk about when it's appropriate to give my son a phone, or how much is he going to pay for his phone plan or car insurance, whether or not we're going to buy a vehicle for him or make him buy it himself. This needs to be a combined effort. Any thoughts on that?
Exactly. And it kind of goes back to decentralized command. When you funnel all the decisions of a family through the father, it becomes tyrannical, just like anything else. when your mother, or when the mother is at home with the kids, she probably knows what's best for the kids the majority of the time since she's spending most of the time with them.
Yes.
So it needs to be a team effort, but there needs to be unity of command, and they both give their input. You know, two people with wisdom combining together their ideas is infinitely better than just one person making decisions on their own all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, there's a scripture enshrined in Mormon doctrine that teaches, "We have learned by sad experience that it is the nature and disposition of almost all men, as soon as they get a little authority, as they suppose, they will immediately begin to exercise unrighteous dominion. No power or influence, whether you're a father, a commander, a boss, a manager, this is critical. No power or influence can or ought to be maintained by virtue of your calling or your priesthood or your bosshood or whatever, only by persuasion, by long suffering, by gentleness, meekness, and by love unfeigned, by kindness, pure knowledge, competence, I would say, which shall greatly enlarge the soul without hypocrisy and without guile." This needs to be a combined effort. Like you said, diffusing responsibility, giving ownership to your lower level troops. And when you're married, really working with your partner as a combined unit, making sure you make these decisions together in the raising of your children. You got to be combined or your kids are going to be, I hate it when my kids come to me and say, "Can I do this?" And I said, "Well, hold on. Did you already ask mama?" "I did." "Okay, whatever she said goes." "But, no, but. If she gave you an answer, that's what I don't even know what you asked. But whatever mama said, that's what we're doing. So don't come asking me." In fact, I get frustrated. "Hold on, I just heard you ask mama that. Why are you going to come and ask me the same question? I don't even know what mom said, but we're sticking with what mama said."
How many times do we get that at work? Someone gets an answer from someone, and then they go to you saying, "Oh, this other person couldn't take care of my problem. I'm coming to you for it." And then you find out you get the same exact conclusion. But people, instead of accepting the answer they don't want, they try to catch people on a different page. And so many people are good at it, but that's one thing you cannot do as a leader.
Yeah, and a really bad boss, when someone comes to you and they've already asked your lower level people the same question, some people, you know people like this, they love to be the savior. They love to be the Santa Claus. "Oh, I'll save you. Oh, I'll protect you. Oh, yeah, I'll give this to you. I shouldn't. And your boss, your supervisor already said no, but yeah, I'll give it to you because I want to look like the good guy, the hero complex." You just destroyed the unity of command in your team. Way to go.
Number one thing you don't do as a leader, also, you don't pit people against each other that are supposed to be working with each other and helping each other. Because that's what happens there. When the higher up person overrides or overrules the person underneath them, and then the person underneath them, whoever they were working with, that relationship is then diminished.
Yeah.
Because the boss overruled them, and then he pit the two people against each other. Like, "Kurt, you were supposed to help me, and I had to go to above you to get help. How am I ever supposed to trust you again?"
Yeah, exactly. Great principle. All these principles, they apply in family, in life, at work, in the military. They're important, true principles, and they all mesh together. I'm done. Do you have anything else to add on this principle before we finish up?
No, I think that we've covered this subject pretty much in depth. I would like to kind of recap and say unity of command is also unity of effort, making sure to remove any doubt of who's in charge. But if that's not possible, make sure that at least unity of effort is consistent and that we have cooperation moving towards common objectives. And to be able to do that better, you can't be a tyrant making every single decision because that's tiring for you. It's not sustainable. You need to learn how to empower others to make decisions and make sure that what you're teaching them and what they are relaying to people is on the same page as you. And as long as you're doing that, I think that you will be able to implement unity of command at a high level.
That's what it's about. Examine leadership. Look closer. Be better. I hope this helped.
Signing off.